Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to do a 1-year review of the Velocirax bike rack, and we're going to give it a little bit of an upgrade. So we bought this Velocirax bike rack at the beginning of the 2020 mountain bike season. Now we're about halfway through the 2021 season, and I had my mountain bike break. So because of the shortage of all the mountain bikes and parts, I'm having to ride my fat bike for the foreseen future. And I don't want to get into that today. So we're going to put a fat bike hoop on this Velocirax rack. While I do that, I want to tell you about my experiences using this rack for the last year. We've taken it from Idaho to South Dakota to Utah. We've probably put, I'm guessing, about 1,000 miles or more onto this rack. We use it every week during mountain bike season. So I've got a lot of experience. I've got a lot of pros and cons. But mostly I just want to share my experiences with you guys. So the Velocirax rack out of the box does not fit a fat bike. Fortunately, they do sell a nice upgradable hoop. So today we're going to install one of these hoops so that I no longer have to take apart the fat bike and stuff it in the back of the Suburban every time I want to take the family mountain biking. The fact alone that this rack is modular and allows me to just interchange these hoops and make it fit a fat bike is absolutely fantastic. I don't know of very many other racks that do that. So this is another win for me, that I can just make a couple quick fixes. With just a few minutes worth of work, I can make my rack from a regular rack to fit in my fat bike. And I'm just gonna reuse those bolts. And there we go, one hoop off. All right, I think that took us about 2 or 3 minutes. And so you can see what it looks like. Now let's load the bike up and see how it responds. Another thing we love about this rack is that you can just roll right up to it and throw the bike in. I think that's going to work nicely, actually. Okay, I think we're going to have to take this to another experiment because their website showed the fat bike going on the left, but I'm wondering if it should go on the right. So one thing we learned really quickly with the Velocirax is you have to load it usually from biggest bike to smallest bike. So we usually put mom and dad's bikes over here, and then the smallest bike gets put over to the right. This is awfully close between these two bikes, and it's not typically like that with normal bikes. Right here is the problem, is it just getting a little bit of rubbing right here between the top of the stem here and the brakes on the fat bike. And I can probably find ways to mitigate that, but that's not the way this rack usually responds. And I gotta say, normally I'm riding my fat bike in the winter, not with a lot of other bikes. So this is a very unusual case. Okay, let's run test number 2. We'll put, like we were doing with anything else, we put this bike in first, the fat bike up next to that. So I gotta say, I'm not sure. If I held these brakes with like some Velcro, I wouldn't get any rubbing at all. But I do like the spacing better this way, with it on the right. A lot more room in general. So as we get down here, you'll see there's pretty decent space all along. Sometimes I have to rearrange the pedals down in there to make sure that I've got enough space so the pedals aren't hitting each frame, but that's it. I got one more idea. Let's try a smaller bike. This time we've loaded the 24-inch mountain bike. So this is our youngest son's bike. This is typically the smallest one. It'll be typically on the right. So what does the fat bike look like next to that? It actually has a lot more room to get loaded. And there is absolutely a ton of clearance in between those bikes. So I think that's the answer. We're gonna keep the fat bike hoop all the way out to the right. So in the last year, we have transported just about every bike you can think of on this bike rack. We've had road bikes, fat bikes, mountain bikes, kids bikes. The only bike I really haven't transported on here is a gravel bike. The first few times I used the Velociracks, I had a little bit of rubbing with some pedals, but I learned really quickly you just have to like align your pedals in between each bike and you'll never have a rubbing problem in between bikes. Hands down, one of the best features of the Velociracks are the dampeners that help you lower the rack slowly. When this rack is full of 6 bikes, especially 6 mountain bikes that all weigh probably close to 30 pounds each, you're looking at almost 200 pounds coming down on top of you. With the dampeners, it slows it down nicely. It's gonna keep everybody safe and you're gonna appreciate having that. When it is fully loaded, it is a little bit harder to get it pushed back into the upright position, but we learned the trick. So you really just grab them right here at the top of the stem. And you want kind of like 2 hands, right? And you just push and they rise up quite nicely. Another feature that I love is how fast it is to load this rack. When it comes down, I can have 6 bikes loaded on this rack in probably 2 minutes or less. It is so fast. Each kid just pops a wheelie on their back tire, lines it up with the hoop, and just rolls it right in, and it's great. Then when you're ready to load, you just push it up and go. There have been 2 times that I have driven off with the rack in the lowered position. It hasn't hurt anything. I figured it out a mile or so down the road and I fixed it. It wasn't a big deal, but you might forget. Another question I get often is whether or not the bike rack fits inside the garage with the bikes on top. So you probably could pull this into the garage if you were sitting on a small car or SUV or minivan. That would probably work. This is a 2012 Suburban. The bottom of the hitch sits at 20 inches, right? So it's already sitting up high. So let me just give you an idea how high that is. So with the bottom of my hitch sitting at 20 inches, I am just shy of 8 feet to the top of my tallest tire. The height of my garage door is 7 feet 10 inches. So it's like right there, very close, right? So with the Suburban, I'm not going to try, but if I have a smaller SUV, I can absolutely keep these bikes on the rack and pull it in and out of the garage, no problem. So I was able to lower the bike rack, get it in, push the bikes back up, and then I gotta finish backing in, but totally works. Awesome life hack. Awesome rack hack. Another feature that I can't praise enough is that you can cinch the bike rack down inside the hitch so that you remove the wobble. There is a little bit of wobble anyway with the bike just because these bikes are rubber and they bend and move. So when you hit train tracks or other big bumps, they do jiggle around a little bit. If the bike rack jiggled as well, it would be terrible. Most other cheap racks that you can get out there, they don't really have that feature. This one does, and I never thought it would be so good, and I love it. I get a lot of complaints about is how heavy the bike rack is, and I gotta concede on this one. It's a little heavy. I can lift it myself. It's about 100 pounds. So I usually heft it up myself, and then I can load it in and out. It's not a big deal. It's way easier with 2 people. So if you don't spend significant time at the gym lifting 100-pound dumbbells and deadlifts and other things, get a second person to help you out. It's not worth carrying this whole thing by yourself. When I bought this rack, I almost got the North Shore rack or the Lolo racks. And I'm glad that I didn't. And I'll tell you why. All of my friends that are on the mountain bike teams with us, the other coaches that we have that have those racks, when they go down the road, their front tires aren't secured. And so when the air comes over the top of their car, those tires spin. And not only do those tires spin, but they spin at about 60, 70 miles an hour sometimes. And so I just don't know what kind of wear and tear that would do to your front wheel and your hub on your bike. This bike rack has none of those problems. The tire sits in there securely, nothing spins. The only thing that I've seen spin are sometimes I'll get pedals will spin, but they don't hit anything, and I'm much less concerned about my pedals and the bearings in the pedals because those are really easy to replace. Pedals are $30 a piece. One last thing I want to mention. When I shot my last review of the Velociracks bike rack, the guys at Velociracks saw my video, saw that I had kind of been a little hard on them about some of the paint chips that I had, and they were kind enough to send me some touch-up paint. So I just gotta give a shout out to the guys at Velociracks. They didn't sponsor this video in any way. I just really, really like this rack. I wouldn't tell you guys about it if I didn't like it as much as I did. So if you really want the best bang for your buck I think you go with the Velocirax bike rack. Well guys, that's about it. I've had the rack, like I said, for about 16 months. I've used it over and over. I've seen lots of other racks in between now and then. I have no regrets about buying the Velocirax. You just can't get a better rack on the market, especially a rack that holds 6 or 7 bikes for the price. If you look out there at any of the other bike racks that hold that much, this bike rack, to me, does the job better, safer, more securely. I lock my bikes to it. I leave them there overnight. Like, I just love this bike rack. I trust it with all of our bikes in the house. So, hope you guys found that helpful. If you have any other questions about the Velocirax, feel free to hit me up in the comments below. We'll see you guys in the next video.